In video 15.1, we demonstrated how to create and use a custom mapping to transform a single element from TestRail to Rhapsody. In this video, we will extend that to a set of TestRail elements with the relationships between them. This simplified schema shows the TestRail artifacts and relationships that Syndeia supports. Notice that the relationships have a direction. When we create a mapping for a particular artifact type, we can include mappings for any outward-pointing relationships, and we can include mappings for the artifacts at the ends of those relationships, which we generically call children. We will apply this to the example shown on the right. A TestRail test run element has two outgoing types of relationships. It is linked to a test suite through a relationship Syndeia calls TestRail run to TestRail suite, and it is linked to 6 separate tests through a different relationship, TestRail run to TestRail test. Our objective is to create a custom mapping that enables this entire set of artifacts and relationships to be transformed in a single action, with the mappings shown on the left. We start as usual by making sure that all the artifact and relation types appear under Model Types in the left column. On the SysML side, we see blocks with the additional stereotypes Test, Test Run, and Test Suite, and relations typed by Allocate and Part Property, and they are already available. Review video 1.8 for how to set up SysML element types, if needed. Under TestRail, TestRail tests, runs, and suites are already available as artifact types, but new types need to be added for 2 relationships. Adding new relationships is simple. Add Relation Type opens a window where we can choose one of the 6 available TestRail relationships and click OK to add it to the list. We do this for both TestRail Run to TestRail Suite and TestRail Run to TestRail Test. Now all of the artifact and relation types on both the SysML side and the TestRail side are available to build a custom mapping for TestRail Run to SysML. However, Syndeia will also need to generate SysML elements at the end of the relations from TestRail Run, and we need to make sure that there is no ambiguity about these, what Syndeia calls related mappings. Under SysML TestRail in mapping groups, we see that there is already a mapping between SysML, Test Suite, and TestRail Suite. If we look at it, it includes specific attribute mappings. We can use this mapping as is, or if we don't like these attributes, update this mapping, or create an alternative mapping for test suites. We don't find a mapping between block test and TestRail test, the other related mapping we need, so we will create it. We won't bother with children of the test elements, though we could extend the mapping further to the test cases that tests reference, but we will include some attributes. TestRail elements generally require, at minimum, a name or title attribute when being created by Model Transform. Now we can create a new mapping between block test run and TestRail run. We will set source and target artifact types, edit name and description, set structure level to children immediate because we only want one additional level created along each relationship type. We create an attributes mapping, again including name at a minimum. In this case, we want to include mapping of relations, so we add 2 rows here. We also add the 2 related mappings to specify how we want the child elements, TestRail suites, and tests to be transformed, using existing mappings in the left column. If these are not specified explicitly, Zendaya will search for acceptable mappings during execution of the model transform. But if there are multiple acceptable mappings, the final result may not be what the user wants. With our new mapping complete, we can use it on our example. In the Connection Manager tab, we drag our test run MLF-FS01 into an empty package in Rhapsody and select the mapping we just created. In a few moments, the model transform is complete, and we can see the new elements in Rhapsody. As with other model transform connections, we can compare and sync the 2 models. I will delete one of the test blocks on the SysML side. In Zendaya, I launch a compare operation across the test run connection. The difference table shows a missing relationship on the SysML side. A few final comments on custom mapping with relationships. First, what happens if an element already exists on the far side of the model transform? For example, the test suite in our example. Zendaya should not create a duplicate SysML test suite element, but use the existing SysML element as the child in the allocate relationship. Second, the relationship mapping is not confined to a single level. Related mappings, such as those for test suite and test, could contain relation mappings for their own outgoing relations, and a cascade of artifacts and relations could be generated. However, one must be careful because test cases and tests by default in TestRail have the same name and could create interference on the SysML side after a model transform. Our expectation is that normal practice might follow 2 scenarios which the Zendaya TestRail interface has been designed to support. The test plan, that is the blue elements, is developed in the SysML architectural model and pushed into TestRail where it is fleshed out. Or the test results are stored and managed in TestRail, but may be pushed back into SysML for requirements verification or some other purpose. The links to the test planning elements would be maintained. The custom mapping feature in Zendaya is powerful but complex. We strongly urge users to work through all the relevant training materials, both hands-on tutorials and videos, before attempting to work on their own. We would appreciate feedback submitted through your online help desk account.